Hey, before you start hating, ain't I'm clean? All right, so this one is going to be a little bit different from the previous one or whatever video goes up before this one. Don't know, don't care. This video is, well, if you can read the title, this one's called The Beef. Why is it called The Beef? For starters, I have finally encountered my first hater on YouTube. I finally saw someone who's just absolutely hating for no reason. And this is a massive accomplishment for any YouTuber. When you get your first hater, you should be praising the Lord because somebody looked at this thing and really said, man, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to type in the comment section. Anyway. Yeah, no, but that was just a real quick shout out to my homies and whatever for, like, you know, looking at the video. Shout out to you guys, the viewers, if you are out there, for watching these videos like this. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I am a small NBA YouTuber, so if you want to see this small NBA YouTuber get slightly less smaller, like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, that's enough shilling for now. So, what is today's video actually about? Well, since I've encountered my first beef, I'm going to talk about why rivalries in the NBA really don't exist as much as they used to, why the culture in the NBA is different as a whole, why people really are looking forward to these rivalries and stuff, and why they don't exist anymore, and more importantly than any of that, why rivalries were vastly overrated in the past and why they're probably not going to happen nearly as much as they used to. So, for starters, I would just like to point this out. I do not know if there are really any rivalries that people talk about from the 70s. I just want to keep that in mind. People do not really talk about rivalries from the 70s of NBA basketball culture. And the ones that they do talk about are rivalries that many fans would not consider to be rivalries for a multitude of reasons. The reasons being that team always kicks their ass, right? Yeah, they meet all the time. Yeah, the NBA might market it as a rivalry, but that team always whoops their ass. And I'm talking about the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. That is like one of the only rivalries that people might talk about from the 70s, but really its origins are either further deeper than that, or more importantly and more likely, you know, just gonna throw that out there. It's not really a real rivalry. It's never been, in my opinion. You beefing with 2 championships and they got 18. Yeah, all right, bro. Anyway, let's talk about rivalries that happened and emerged in the 80s that I think everyone can recognize today. Obviously, Celtics-Lakers. Celtics-Lakers is one of the biggest rivalries of all time. And this one has bigger roots in the 80s, but it goes as far back as to the 60s, when the Celtics primarily kicked their ass. Then it emerged again in the 80s, where the Lakers kind of kicked their ass. Let's be quite honest. If you look at the numbers, Lakers are the better team. Then it goes all the way to the 2000s. You said, what about the 90s? Oh, well, there were no rivalries in the 90s except Jordan versus everybody, so hate to break it to you. What about the 2000s? Well, the Lakers were really good in the beginning of the 2000s, and the Celtics were distinctly not. Maybe if Lynn Bias hadn't passed away, they probably would have been a little bit better. But that didn't happen. And then their last stint of their rivalries really happened in the 2010s and the late 2000s. You know, like 2008 to 2010. You know, those eras where they had 2 multiple finals matchups. So that's a really I'm gonna be just completely honest. Rivalries that take place between East and West teams really don't happen that often unless the team is, you know, competing against each other in the finals. Or, well, no, that's pretty much it. They have to be competing in the finals for it to be a real rivalry, because you don't see them on your schedule enough, and there's no animosity going into those games besides, oh, I fucking hate these guys, I want to beat them. That's normally how rivalries start. I don't know if you know what the word rivalry means, but let me quickly look it up for you guys. Rivalry, a competition for the same object or for superiority in the same field. See, this is why rivals typically happen in the finals, if they're going to be East versus West. The last rivalry that I participated in was pretty obvious. Cavs Warriors. Now, I won't say this is the greatest rivalry of all time or anything, because it isn't. But from 2015 to 2016, I mean, that was a really good rivalry. And it was even a little interesting in Christmas 2017. Sorry, 2016 Christmas. The finals. Yeah, not so much. Kevin Durant joining definitely spoiled the rivalry. Speaking of rivalries that KD has been a part of, KD versus Golden State would have been a rivalry. Unfortunately, KD decided that just like in any good anime, that having a rivalry is mad overrated and it's time to defeat the big bad and join up together. Now, everyone has relentlessly clowned him for having to team up with him because they thought that he'd be able to handle it by himself. But I don't see anyone doing that to Naruto and Sasuke, so I don't know. He realized he's a lot more Naruto and Sasuke than he is Goku and Vegeta. And if you get that reference, you get that reference. And if you don't get that reference, I know you don't touch grass. How do you not get that reference? Anyway, more importantly, let's talk about some recent rivalries that we thought were gonna bloom and why they really didn't. Pelicans Suns. That was a very gritty first round. Everyone expected this to be a rivalry. So let's talk about real quickly why it wasn't ever going to be a rivalry. One, the guys in this rivalry were not on the same timeline. That's a massive part of it. So this was around the time when they still had Brandon Ingram, when we thought Zion might get healthy, and when the Suns really, really, really were annoying. And I do mean annoying. Not very good, but annoying. This is, if I'm not mistaken, this is post their finals run. Yes, this is absolutely post their finals run. I don't know why I was tripping. This is post their finals run, but before Bell-to-ass Luka in Game 7. So why do we think this was going to be a rivalry? Well, for starters, we thought the Pelicans were finally on the up and up, and that in one more year we'll see a healthy Zion, and this will really be something versus a team that just made it to the finals. Now, why did this not wind up being a rivalry? Go on, take a guess. That's right. Chris Paul got immediately washed after this, and then after that, the Pelicans still are waiting on Zion Williams to be healthy. Now, you might be wondering, what happened to Brandon Ingram? They sent that nigga to Toronto, where he hasn't played a game yet. They did not want to pay him, so they sent him to Toronto. Sucks to suck, I guess. Well, what about Memphis versus Golden State? Well, that would have been a rivalry if, again, Ja Morant could stay healthy. So I think you're starting to notice one of the problems with modern rivalries. Health is a massive concern. And not only that, but because health is such a massive concern, you're not going to see these matchups as much as you think you will. And because of that, they don't really get ingrained into your mind, and they don't really become historical enough to become these rivalries. We thought we would see this with this young Memphis team. This was back in the day when they had, back in the day, Jesus Christ, not that long ago. When they had Dylan Brooks, Ja Morant was still young and emerging, and before all the gun issues, this was just injury Ja Morant, not Ja Morant. Steph was really, really good, and this is way before they decided, yeah, maybe we don't want to give Klay a lot of money. This was before Draymond punched Jordan Poole in the face. Now, obviously, the team's dynamics have obviously changed, and this is why this is no longer a rivalry. Houston versus Golden State. This is not a rivalry no matter how much you tell it to me, because of one to two things. Too much belt to too much ass. The Rockets have historically failed to beat the Golden State Warriors. And I mean often. They matched up against each other in 2015. That resulted in a Golden State win. And another thing with this, because rivalries are very predicated on the stars, and stars are much more mobile than they used to be back in the day, you are not getting team rivalries. You might get player rivalries that the media push for very hard, but these players, like each other. They respect each other. Back in the day, there was a lot more animosity. This is probably due to physicality. Physicality and the culture before you get into the NBA, of knowing who these guys are before you get into the NBA. Because back in the day, not only were they absolutely harassing and assaulting you on the court, but more importantly than that, you didn't like these guys because you never knew who they were. And once you got into the NBA, you certainly knew who they were when they gave you a fucking elbow. Knicks Bulls, this is not a rivalry. I don't know how many people need to hear this. This was never a rivalry. Don't let them tell you otherwise. It's always been, since the Bulls had Jordan, the Bulls beat the out of the New York Knicks in a surprisingly new and inventive way. It's not a rivalry. Do not let them tell you this. Now, the Suns versus Kobe, that's a rivalry. Lakers Suns, early 2000, that was a rivalry. I don't know why people don't talk about this. Once the Suns, and I know you're thinking, but wait. You just said it's not a rivalry if it's not back and forth. When the Suns had got Steve Nash newly, and he won those 2 MVPs, yeah, these teams were rivals. Not because of anything that happened in the playoffs, although they did have a legendary playoff series, but more importantly because because the media was pushing this narrative that Kobe was robbed. It should have gone to LeBron, just so you're clear. It should have gone to LeBron. Not one of those years it should have gone to Dirk, and one of those years it should have gone to LeBron, in my opinion. 50-50 though. Steve Nash won those MVPs, and I'm not going to take them away from him. Because I'm not a loser who cares about that so much. Also, it happened in 2006 and 2005. Grow up. Regardless of any of those things. I just want you to look at this. Then after this series, because they played each other in 2006, everyone knows that series. Very legendary Kobe moments from those series, including one of my Green's very infamous bangs. In fact, one of the only bangs he's ever set on a 2-pointer. So, yeah. And then there's the 2009 one where, yeah, the Suns were not quite as good anymore, and the Lakers were a lot better. This is a low-key rivalry. It is not the same as a lot of the other ones that I'm talking about because there was a lot more back and forth with these ones. This was a lot more mushing each other into the pavement type of rivalries. You understand. So, another reason why you're not getting rivalries as much is because the competition in each conference is either really too good on one conference or really too bad in the other conference. So, let's really talk about this in the East. I just want you to know, in the East, there is a possibility, and this can happen a lot, that a team that is only 500 can make it into can not only make it into the playoffs, but make it out of the play-in. Think about that. Into the playoffs, not in the play-in. You could be a 50-50 team. Now, the East is obviously getting better and much more competitive than it used to be in the past, but it's still not as competitive as the West. And in the West is obviously too much of a bloodbath for there to be real rivalries. Why am I saying this? Because I'm not going to lie, you are not going to consistently have the same team dominating the West every year in and out. The last 2 years are the only 2 years that I've seen in a very long time that a team that was number one in the West last year repeated as number one in the West the following year. You would think that would lead to rivalries, but with the landscape of the West changing drastically, with the Mavericks just falling completely off a cliff because they traded Luka Doncic for next to no reason, and the rejuvenation of the Lakers, that's going to change dynamics. That is obviously going to make rivalries a little bit different. Oh, by the way, just in case we're clear, because we were unclear, LeBronto, not a rivalry. Nicolai, not a rivalry. Anytime you see two teams that go against each other a lot, but it's very one-sided, it's not a rivalry. LeBron versus the Pacers, not a rivalry. Just wanted to point that out. Any team that is consistently beating a team does not qualify for a rivalry. So, since I've already educated you in the ways of a rivalry, pick two teams right now at random and push the narrative that these two teams are rivals, because we need more rivalries in the NBA, regardless if the NBA wants to give us to them naturally or not. Honestly, that's all I gotta really say. So, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. If you want to see me go back at this man who is absolutely hating for no reason on one video for no reason, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to be a part of anything else in the near future, watch more videos. Maybe you and me can start a rivalry. That's gonna be it. That's gonna be all for me. Yeah, enjoy your day.